Have you ever wondered what was God's purpose in making mankind? And what was his plan? What was his process? What was he thinking when he made this statement, let us make man in our image and in our likeness? Now, at the bottom of the screen there, you can see a question that was asked by the psalmist David. That's a very profound question. He said, or he asked God, what is man that you think of him? Now, you need to consider this. David is asking God a question, and he must be thinking, he must be pondering, God, you're so magnificent. You're the most significant thing in existence in the entire universe. There's nothing like you. I consider the heavens, I consider the stars, all the planets that exist out there, the angels, all the animals on earth, earth itself, and how big it is and how tiny we're so tiny. And what's so important about man? What's so important about us that you even think about us? And what's so significant that you would even care about our sons, our children? It's a very profound question. Welcome to Beyond the Veil. So this is a broadcast that I'm producing. I want to introduce you, just briefly take a few minutes to introduce you to what I refer to as God's 3XP and the whole premise, the whole purpose behind producing this broadcast, which I call Beyond the Veil. And it revolves around this thing of God's 3XP and this profound question that David is asking. So when I refer to as God's 3XP, I'm talking about three things. The three P's are purpose, plan, and process. So what was God's purpose for making mankind? And did he have a plan? And more importantly, how well thought out is this plan? Because sometimes it seems that things are chaotic. Did God plan for that? Right? Things seem to have gone crazy. Did God plan for that? Right? And because obviously if he had a purpose, he wanted to achieve that. So how meticulous was his plan? And is it possible for me to know what that plan is? And once you have a plan, you obviously have to implement that plan. So what was his process that he implemented in order to fully accomplish his purpose? These are very significant things, and I wanted to know, can I possibly discover what this is? So what I can say to you from my research is that God definitely had a purpose, and he's always had a purpose. And in his purpose, he desired to have what the scriptures refer to as a perfect man. Now that sounds kind of strange. I know a lot of you ladies out there may argue with me. There's no such thing as a perfect man. Well, maybe we have to reconsider how we define the word perfect. Because if we look at the scriptures, and we look at words, the Greek, Hebrew words, perfect has multiple ways of understanding it. It can refer to as maturity, complete, accomplished. So what does that mean? And God obviously wanted a perfect man, and he wanted this man to reflect his image and his likeness. But what I discovered is that the attributes of his likeness could be created instantaneously, but the attributes of his image had to be gained, or they had to be developed through a process which I've referred to as the perfecting process. See, in the end result, God would have a perfected Son of Man. Jesus Christ is the Son of Man. And the scripture says that he was perfected. Now, it refers to it by saying that the captain of our salvation was perfected through the things he suffered. And he learned obedience through the things he suffered. And when this Son of Man was perfected, he would then become a priest forever. Very significant, because at the end of this perfection process, you become a priest. Jesus became the high priest. He's the highest of all priests, the high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. That's very important for us to take into consideration. So this priesthood perfection process is what caused Christ to become the perfected priest. And in that timeline, he fulfilled something, and he became the firstborn of many sons who would be brought to glory. So Jesus is the first son, the firstborn of many sons, meaning others. So he was the first, you and I are the second, third, fourth, fifth, etc. We see that in Romans and Hebrews, where it talks about being perfected, taking on the likeness of Christ, being conformed to the image of his son. And so he was the first son, and he went into glory, and now we are to go behind him into glory. So when God said, let us make man, he was only beginning a process which he had meticulously planned. He planned this out very good, and in time, through this broadcast, I will cover a lot of that on how God had these plans. We don't know how long he had it, but he had them for a long time. And he would have a Son of Man, which is Jesus Christ, the Son of Man, hanging on a cross. And at the end of this process, in the fulfillment of time, he would come to the end. His suffering would come to an end when he would make the statement, it is finished. At that point, it was accomplished, and now his suffering ended. The scripture says he was perfected through suffering. And so when his suffering ends, it's because he is now perfected. And so now he becomes high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. So we will cover a lot of that. But Jesus became the first perfected son. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. We are children or descendants of the first Adam. Everybody usually says that. Adam was the first, Adam and Eve. And so in Corinthians it says, and so it is written, the first Adam became a living being. The last Adam became a life-giving spirit. So the last Adam is Jesus. He was a life-giving spirit. However, the spiritual was not first, but the natural. And afterward, the spiritual. The first man was of earth, made of dust. The second man is the Lord from heaven. As was the man of dust, so also are those who are made of dust. And as is the heavenly man, so also are those who are heavenly. And as we have borne the image of the man of dust, we shall also bear the image of the heavenly man. Now, I could go into a lot of this, but I just don't have the time because I'm just introducing you to that. But we shall bear the image of the heavenly man, which is Jesus. Become like Christ. Be Christ-like. We all like to say that, be Christ-like. But what does that really mean? There is a maturing process we have to go through. So, beyond the veil, what this means and the purpose of this broadcast is to take us all beyond the veil within the tent of meeting. See, when we study the tabernacle of Moses, we find out a lot. Remember, the tabernacle of Moses was a shadow and a type of what is in heaven. There's one in heaven. God told Moses to make this one to resemble the one you saw in heaven when I showed it to you. Now, in this tabernacle, there's a veil between the holy place and the most holy place. There's a veil. That veil prevents man from seeing and entering or coming to glory, because the most holy place is the place where glory dwells. So to come into glory, you cannot see it nor enter it because of this veil. So the veil has to be removed. Remember, when Jesus was crucified, the veil was ripped. But Corinthians says that to this day, when they read the law, their hearts are still veiled. So the veil has to be removed. So the purpose of this broadcast, Beyond the Veil, is for you and I to both seek diligently to remove the veil, to be unveiled, and to discover the mysteries of the kingdom, because unto us it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom. That's what Jesus said, to go beyond the veil into his marvelous light, to discover God's purpose, plan, and process for making man, making us into his image and into his likeness. So I welcome you. I invite you to join me on this journey to go beyond the veil and to know the truths of God's plan, His purpose, and His process for bringing you into this holy matrimony with Him in glory.